Hello. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning. Can you all hear me?
Yes,
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Raise your hand or something like that so I can be sure that you can all hear me. Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
audible.
Okay. Just give me a second. I think we'll start in few minutes. Maybe at 9, 10 or something, we'll start. Hello everyone, good morning. I hope I'm audible. So all of you, welcome to Encode IT. I can see good number of people are interested in today's workshop. So here today we are here to talk about REST API with Jersey and Spring Boot. So before going to start, let me introduce myself. I am Pujita and I have 6 years experience of working as a full stack web developer. Along with right now I'm working in an MNC. Along with working experience, I do have a teaching experience in full stack web development and programming languages, AWS and DevOps. So let's quickly start. If you got some doubt or if you want to ask something, you can unmute yourself and you can ask any queries if you have while I'm teaching. And if you want me to repeat something or you think you didn't understand or you didn't get a point of what I am speaking, you just unmute yourself or you can just ping me in the chat window. I can repeat that topic again. Okay. So shall we start? Yeah, I think we are good to go.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for the response. Any single response from your side is highly appreciated. Okay. So before talking about all this API and Jersey Spring Boot stuff, you should know what is a web service basically. Before going into APIs and stuff, a basic knowledge about web service is a good thing actually. So web service, I think you all heard about the word web service like often. Web services, APIs, these are all the words like everyone use common.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So a web service, I'll show you. I think you can see my screen, right? Oh. So it's like communication between any two say softwares or any two systems over internet, using internet. Let's say there is a one system 1, and there is another system 2, which are completely at different locations, let's assume, and and there is a communication between these two over internet. See, when there are any two devices which are not at the same location, how the communication happens between them using internet, right? So
Protocol also, ma'am.
Yeah, protocol is like following the rules, like how to communicate. I'm talking about first, before talking about the rules, I'm talking about how the communication happens over internet.
Okay.
So whenever I'm talking about the system 1 and system 2, they're not just a system. It's just a program written by anyone. So it's basically the communication between two programs over internet. So it's how this works is, here one system, let's say system 1, we call it as a client, and system 2, we call it a server. So one sends the request to another system, and that system will give the response back to this system 1, which sent the request. Let's say system 1 send a requesting in something. Let's say you entered an e-commerce application or m-commerce application. You open an m-commerce application, it's Amazon, and you requested for some product. In the search bar, you will request for something, right? Let's say some trousers or sneakers. You searched for it. That is nothing but a request. You are sending something. And then what is the response you are getting? the products got displayed on the page, whatever you are looking at the page, the response will be the displaying products. So that is server sending back the response to the client. So this way of communication in form of request and response between two systems, or we can say between a client and server, we call this as a web service. So you can say like a server is nothing but it is a software running in a system, in any system, and client is also the same program. It is these two, server and client, I am talking about, they are just programs written by us. So these are basically the programs which are listening for both requests, that at a particular port. Particular port means, let's say port is like an endpoint, or you can say a location, port number 8080. We say these are the endpoints where the communication happens over a network. So request and response can be messages, or you can say files, or you can say something that is formatted in a JSON, XML. That may be anything. You can actually transfer files, documents, any information over internet in this request and response format. You call that as a web service. Okay, I think by now you all are clear with what is web service. Okay, so, or in simple ways, you can say like it is a collection of protocols. Protocols, you all know what is a protocol, right? Protocol means what? Any rules and regulations, right? So for exchanging data, we use some protocols and standards. That is also termed as a web service. So yeah, here if you can see here, let me see. A client and server both are nothing but two systems communicating over internet. So one system here serves as the server and another system serves as a client. So this is how it will work, if you can see. Okay, now.
Screenshot is going to go on.
Sorry, did someone say something? I didn't hear you actually. Okay. So yeah, now coming to RESTful web services. Actually, I waited. If someone is asking something, you can unmute yourself. I didn't hear you actually. Okay, RESTful web services. Now we just learned about web service, and now I'm saying RESTful web service. Okay, so you can say like any web service which is defined on the principles of REST. So basically, web services there are many two types of web services. Let's see. One is SOAP and another one is REST. So right now we are talking about REST, and also I just told about RESTful web service. I just told it is a collection of standards and rules, right? So any web service which follows these principles of REST, there are some principles. It is not a too strict web service. There are some principles you need to follow while implementing that REST. So any service which follows the principles of this REST, we call it as a RESTful web service. Right now we are learning about REST and not SOAP. You may all get a doubt of why I need to learn REST and not SOAP. I mean, you need to learn SOAP, but compared to SOAP, REST is kind of efficient. And why I am saying it is efficient? See, actually SOAP is a first web service. that came into picture before REST actually. SOAP is kind of too strict. As I said, there are some rules, but SOAP is kind of too strict. That means like it follows some particular rules, which like you don't have much scope actually while communication. See, no one likes something which has many rules and there is no scope of you can say scalability. There are some issues with SOAP because it is too strict. It has some standard way to communicate and it requires more bandwidth to communicate compared to REST. So after SOAP, REST came into picture, which has much more advantage because it doesn't follow any strict standard, has only some or little rules. While communication, we'll see what are those rules. So REST is the full form of REST. You can see REST stands for representational state transfer. So I think you all know about I think you're from CS background and you all know about protocols in networking, HTTP, TCP, UDP. You all heard about these protocols,
No,
I guess, right?
no, ma'am.
No, yeah, it's fine. Even if you didn't heard about it, it's fine. I'll explain it now. So when you are communicating with other devices or when the communication happens between two devices, we'll follow some rules I said, right? So those rules and the way of communication we call, sorry. Okay. So those rules have some names. Right now, REST is based on HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So these are all the rules actually we need to follow while implementing the web service. So here we are talking about RESTful web service and why we need to use it. Here you can see I'm presenting the screen, right? Okay. It is lightweight, maintainable, and scalable. So these are the terms you can understand. Scalable in the sense, let's say one person is accessing some website. Let's say Amazon Great India Sale or Flipkart Big Billion Days. You all heard about these things, right? Compared to normal days, traffic on those days is high, and like many people are requesting for product, many people are buying the products. So the traffic to the website increases on those days compared to normal days. So scalability refers to balancing the load. Okay, even when there are huge requests coming from the client side, balancing the load, we call it as a scalable. Like we can actually you can say elastic in nature. We can based on the requirement, we can actually increase the servers. That is what we call it as scalable. And maintainable and lightweight, as I said, it doesn't require much bandwidth to communicate and it doesn't follow any strict standards. So it is a kind of light. So okay, I'll see. This is how it happens. If you can see the picture on my screen, REST web server on the server side, we'll implement this RESTful web service to be able to communicate with the client. So the request and response, what we send is in HTTP format. Did someone say something? Just give me a second. You can't hear me?
You are audible, ma'am.
Can you hear me now?
You are audible, ma'am. Some
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, someone said they can't hear me. Okay, thank you so much. So let me go back to where I stopped. So this is how it happens. So client and server, these are nothing but two programs or two systems. You can say one is your mobile phone and the other one is a server residing on that website. You are communicating with Amazon. You are the client. You are sending some request, and you will be getting some response from the server, Amazon server. There are so yeah, that is how it happens. This is that. Now we will see what before implementing REST. We need to see. I said there are not too many rules, just some principles you need to know before implementing REST. I'll tell you about it. Okay. So I'll say, wait. Yeah. What is the first one here? What is the first principle? You can see uniform interface. So specific resources should be identified in the request. Usually they are described by uniform resource identifier. See, it's kind of tough, right? Let me explain. So URI. Have you heard this before? URI? Anyone? Okay, no problem.
No, ma'am.
I'll tell you.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So let's say I said you are sending some request to the server, right? Some request. Now let's say this is client. Client is let's say A. A is sending some request to server. He's requesting something. Let's say he want to log in into a website. So he's requesting to log in. So there is some URL or there is some message he needs to send. So whenever let's say you all use Instagram, I think, right? So before you use Instagram, what you do, you have to log in, right? So for logging, you have to provide your credentials. Let's say your username and password. You need to send, right? So you are requesting the Instagram to log in by passing your username and password. So in the request, you have username and password. And let's say after logging in, you want to view something, like you want to view the feed and you click on the feed. That is another request. So these are different kinds of requests, right? So whenever I say uniform resource identifier, URI, what happens is for all the requests you send from, or for all the requests that are sent from a client, have some common, you can say a common, let's say common message, you can assume right now, common message before whatever the parameters that need to be passed. Let's say you are working, okay, you are working on the port 8080. So the common thing, let me type it. So for every request, let's say right now Instagram is working on this 8080, and so before commonly everything there is a common message, as I said. So something like this. So if you want to log in, it will be like this. And let's say you want to see the feed, then it will be Instagram feed. And you want to see some other thing inside Instagram. So it will be something star. So anything. So the common message, this is the common thing, which is what we call as URI, uniform resource identifier. So this will be common for every request you are sending. So that is one principle you need to follow while implementing REST. Resource identifier means what? Resource here, what is resource here? Resource is Instagram you are going to connect into. So this is common for every request you are sending inside the Instagram. This is just an example. Let's say you have an organization where you have like database. You all heard about the word database, right? Right?
Yes.
Database
Yes, ma'am.
means what? It is like storing information. So let's say you own a company and you have all the details of employees table in general. If I need to talk, so you have all the details of employees inside the employee table. Now you want to know the details of some employee with, let's say, the basic thing will be like this, and you want to access the details of employee with ID 100. So this will be the common, and the last part will change. And let's say you want to add information of some employee, again it will be same. You will just change the parameter. Or if you want to view the details of all the employees in the database, then it will be something like this. So only this thing changes, like based on our requirement. The basic, this we call it as uniform resource identifier or URL. Okay, nothing but an URL. Okay, let's come back. So you all understand this uniform interface, right? Uniform interface means whenever you are communicating with the server, there is something which is common for every request. Whenever you are communicating with one particular server, for all the requests, there is one common URL. Okay, you all clear with that, right? I think you are clear. If you have any doubts, you can ping me in the chat window, or you can unmute yourself and ask. And the other one is client server architecture. As I said, this client uses this URI. See, client is, if you are using Instagram, let's say you are the client. So you will be using this URI to communicate with Instagram servers. It doesn't concern how the server processes the request. So basically this will be in the form of client server architecture. You can see here, or you can see in this picture as well. You can see this picture. Give me a second. So this is basically in client server model. That is another principle. And the third one is statelessness. So have anyone heard about stateful and statelessness?
What happened?
What happened, ma'am? Share your screen.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Did someone ask something? No, today's class is not related to database management system. I'm talking about resource here. So I just told you about a database, like when you want to access database and retrieve some information from it. Let's say there is a system, as I said, when there are two systems and you want to access database of another system, you need to send request to that, because Instagram maintains a database of all the users using Instagram. So whenever someone try to log in, it will check the credentials of that user inside the database. So that is why I talked about the database. Okay. Okay. Where are we? Let me go to this. Okay. Statelessness I'm talking about, right? So have you heard this word before? Stateless, stateful.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
There are
Can
the
anyone
two
say
types
what
of
it is?
protocol.
No, ma'am.
Statelessness.
Yes, ma'am. These are two types
Oh.
of protocols: stateful and stateless.
What do you mean by
Uh,
that?
Stateless means
Just
there is no information saving about the server or any
yeah,
machines. But
yeah,
when it comes to the stateful, it is saved by the servers.
yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll
For
explain
example,
it.
like FTP,
Yeah.
FTTP for stateful and SMTP also. When it comes to the
Okay.
stateless, the example is HTTP protocol.
Very good. Very good. So yeah, you are right actually. So let me explain in detail again. For there are people who are confused. So I'll explain again. Okay. So yeah. So I'll tell you an example which will be easier to understand. Let's say there is a person called Bob and he is requesting some server. So there is a server, let's say, and inside it, there is a login option and view profile, another option. So this is some server he is trying to log in. Bob is trying to log in into this server. So what is the first thing he need to do? He need to send a request to log in by passing his credentials, right? So the request will be something like, let me type it here instead of writing there. So let's say it is something like this. He's requesting the server to log in. Let's say username equal to Bob and password equal to, let's say, Bob1. Okay. So this is the request he is going to pass. I'm talking about stateful first. So first, Bob is sending this request to the server to log in. So whenever he tries to log in into the server for the first time, there will be some variable inside the server. Inside this, there is some session variable. We call it a session variable. Let's say logged is that variable name, and it is set to true after he logins for the first time. You all clear until now? This is a server. He tried to log in by passing his credentials, and there is a variable inside the server. We call it a session variable. So it is set to true. Now, whenever he tries to, after login, he's requesting again to view the profile. So since this is logged is true, it will automatically redirect to profile page because he's already logged in. There is no need to authenticate again. This is stateful. Okay, this is one thing you need to remember. Let's say this is not the case with big applications. This is a small application, so there is only one server. let's say you are dealing, you're talking with Amazon, Instagram, or any other thing. When talking about larger applications, there are numerous servers. So there are so many, let's say hundreds and thousands of servers. So the problem with this is a stateful actually. Here what happens, the server is storing this session, or like you can say the details of the user inside the server. This is stateful. Okay. So let's say I'm talking about larger applications. In larger applications, what happens? We have more than one server. I'll tell the problem here. So again, there is Bob, and here, as I said, we'll have two servers. This is load balancing. Why I am talking about load balancing is, let's say you have some numerous requests coming from the user. If you transfer all those requests to one server, then what happens? It will stop responding because it can't handle too many requests. So we'll have numerous servers where the request is redirected every time based on the load. So this is server 1, this is server 2, this is server 3. So now first time user Bob is again trying to log in. Again, this is a new scenario. So inside this, there is a logged variable. So in stateful, I am talking about, it is set to true after login. So login got completed. Now the Bob is logged in. Now Bob want to view profile. Now he is sending new request again to view the profile. Now let's say this request, instead of instead of redirecting to server 1, it got redirected to server 2. Because based on load balance, we can't say which server, because client can't see which server his request is being redirected to. Now his request got redirected to S2. Now here the logged variable is still false, because first time when he logged in, it got redirected to server 1. There his details got authenticated or his details got checked, but his details are unknown to server 2. Now what happens? He need to log in again. You are already logged in, and to view your profile, if you want to, if you need to provide your credentials again, is it a bad experience, right? User doesn't find it comfortable for every operation if he needs to log in. It is not a good thing. So this is a problem with statefulness. Maintaining details of the user in one server, and if the request is directed to other server, what happens? It is not a good user experience. So this is a scenario with statefulness. Okay. And also database is only connected to single server. That is again a problem. So for bigger applications, statefulness is not recommended. So then, sorry. And what is statelessness? What is the difference? Stateless. All clear with statefulness, right? It is stateful because it stores whenever the user visits the site for a specific duration, it will store the login credentials, or it will store the session of that user. That is why it is called as stateful. Okay, now we'll talk about statelessness. Again, we'll take Bob. Okay. Excuse me. So there is this Bob again. Now he's trying to log in into the server. Let's say there are several servers, not just the one. Yes, server 1, server 2, and server 3. And so now in statelessness, what happens is the database access will be to every server, because they can access, like any server can access the database. Now, how the Bob sends the request? It is the same first time. Okay, he will log in. That is the same. Next, what happens is whenever he logged in using the request, immediately that client will be assigned a token. Not only that client, whenever you get a request, first time Bob is requesting something in the server, so immediately Bob is assigned with a token ID. So whenever you enter something, you will be given a token. let's say you are entering some exhibition or something, you will get a ticket or you will get some ID written on it. So while you are exiting, you can collect your belongings there, showing the token ID, right? So something like that. So a token is assigned to Bob. So whenever, now let's say the same scenario, he logged using server 1 and he want to view the profile using server 2. I mean, not using, sorry, it is redirected server 2. So now it is not a new request for server 2 because the token is already assigned. So to how many servers it got redirected, there will be a token ID to uniquely identify that request. So whenever the request is coming from the same client, the token ID is same. So using that token ID, it will send the response back to this client. So yeah, it doesn't store any statefulness. It doesn't store any details of the user in the or any session variables in the server. It will just assign a token ID, and using the token ID, it will identify the request coming. Okay, this request is coming from the same client. So that, like that, it will work. So you can see this is what we call it as scalability. So like this, you can even access 200 servers. Yeah, every request is treated as a new request in stateless. Yeah, that's correct. So I think you all clear with the stateful and statelessness. Now our REST is stateless protocol. So using this token, you can actually redirect to any server, and it can scale up to numerous servers, not just a single server. So it is convenient for larger applications. Okay, so that one is cacheability. Cacheability, you all heard about cacheability, cache. Anyone?
Ma'am.
No. Yeah. Cacheability. I think you all heard about the word cache before. Anyone? Okay, fine.
Okay.
So as I said, whenever this user is requesting something to the server, it will save that response in a cache, or you can say in a memory block. It will save that for some time, not all the time. For some, there is a duration of that session. It will store the response from a particular client in a cache. So whenever this client initiate that request again, it will get a faster response because the response is already stored in the cache for a particular time. Okay, user is requesting something, and whenever this response is getting back to the user, this response is stored here. So whenever the same request with the same token ID is hitting the server, it will just send the response that is stored in the cache. So this time what happens? It is faster. It will get the faster response compared to other requests. Okay, so this happens with REST API. So cacheability is one added advantage of REST. So because the server doesn't have to process again all this authenticating, all this stuff, it doesn't process every time, because it is stored in cache. Yeah, it's correct. So that is cacheability. And layered system. Layered system, one last principle is layered system. So REST API is you all know about this layered system? Read this point and let me know if you all heard about this kind of layered thing before. business logic, presentation, data access layer. Okay, fine. Okay. So there is this layer system, like whatever you can see whenever you are accessing an application, whatever you can see, which we call it as presentation layer. And the other where actual logic is implemented, you call that as a business logic or service layer. So here you will implement all the methods, or you will write the logic for everything. And this one is the database, which we call it as persistent layer. Yeah, very good. So model view control. So presentation layer is which you can see that, let's say HTML form or something. And the business logic is where the actual logic, where all the services are implemented. Services in the sense, the functionalities you provide on your, let's say, on your website or on your app, whatever the services are there, all the services are implemented in this layer. It is all just the packages. Don't think, like, don't be confused. These are all just the packages you write in a program. You are writing a program, and these are the separate packages. So all the database stuff is one package, and all the services are implemented in one package, and all the controller and the presentation thing is in one package. So like this, everything is differentiated, or everything is in a layered manner. So connecting between one-to-one service is easy if it is in layered manner. So this is one more principle of REST. I think you are all clear with these principles of REST. And this I just explained about stateful and statelessness. Now RESTful elements. So yeah, resources. These are the elements of REST. I will show you the code and then I'll explain this. I'll come back to this slide. So because if I explain it now, because if you are new to this, you will be confused about the terms. And if I show you the code and it's working, then. So as I said, requesting the server, you will have this request verbs. So different kinds of requests. If you want to see the information, if you want to retrieve the information, you will use get. And if you want to add some information to the resource in the sense, the database, you can say, because here we are requesting the database to view the data, or if you want to add the data to it, you will say post. So these are the terms you need to use while requesting a server. Okay, put is to update something on your server, and delete is to you if you want to delete something on your server, then you will use delete. And I'll show you about the request headers, and request body is the actual body you are sending. Let's say you want to view, if you want to add a new employee to your database, you will pass the ID and the name of that employee to the database to add. You all know the basic SQL operations, right? CRUD operations. So something like that, if you want to add some data, or if you are passing some message to the user, that is what you call it as request body. And response body is what you get in response back. I'll show you in this, I'll show you the code. You will understand more clearly. Yeah, sure. At the end of the, I think you need to ask the admin team about it. Okay. So these are the methods. If you want to use to get the data, you'll use get. If you want to add data to the resource, you'll use post. If you want to update, you'll use put. And if you want to delete, you'll use delete resource. Okay, I'll show you. Okay, this is what I talked about this, if you all remember. Common uniform resource identifier. So this is the port where you are accessing the server, where you are connecting to the server. So this is common to all the requests. I'll show you the code. Give me a second. So don't get confused with all this code. You just need to, what you need to see is, you need to see this thing, only just this. I'll explain this part. Forget about the other things. So this is the server we are trying to access. So this is actually a free request response server service. You can access this. I'll show you this website. Like if you want to try sample request and response thing, then this is one such service, free service, open service we can use. So this is the common URL which you have to use before every request. So as I said, you want to get the information inside that service. Let's say there is some information inside that bin, HTTP bin, and you want to get all those services. So using this annotation, this is the thing you need to add. Here at the beginning, I told you, right? See, if you want to log in, you will use login. If you want to feed, this is common. The front part is common. That is URI. So this URI is common. And you, if you want to get the information, you will keep get. Okay. And see, the one more thing is this you all, this is no need right now. Okay. I showed you the URI, right? Now I'll run this and I'll show the request response, how it happens. Then later we'll come back to this. Actually, here I use the Spring for implementing REST. Okay. I'll show you first jersey. Okay, it is running. It started running. Yeah, sure. Okay, it started running and I'll show you the port. Wait, if it is possible to maximize the console. If you can see, you all can see here, right? On which port it started, it is 8090. We can check on that port actually. I'll go to Postman. Sorry, did someone say something?
Ma'am, can you share this PPT?
Yeah, then you can actually contact the admin team, and yeah, at the end, I think you can all get this PPT and port. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So, on which port it is running? 8090, right?
Yeah, ma'am.
8090. And what is the thing? Get, right? Get is the thing. So I just selected get and I entered the URI and I'm clicking get. Sorry, I'm clicking send. We are sending the request and you can see the response here. Now I'll tell everything here. Actually, this is some response from the server. What is our server? http.bin.org. We send a request and see status code and status code value. This is a response actually. In which format it is there? The response. Can anyone say in which format it is there? Response. You can see here. It is in JSON format. The response is in JSON format. And here it is a status code. If you all can see here, I think you all are about 200, 4 not found. You will see some responses when you are trying to access this website or something. You will get 404, page not found. You all know about this HTTP response status codes. So if it is 200 means, yeah, it's working fine, it is okay. And here it is the time to get the response, and it is the size of the response. You all can see here, right? So request headers. What are the request headers? These are the additional instructions sent with the request. This is a request I sent, and the headers you can see here, request headers. These are actually, you don't have to what you say, you don't have to separately mention. It will be automatically sent to the server. Like additional request means accept anything. So then accept. So if you say like this, it means accept anything. And if you mention only JSON, or if you mention only plain text like that, then it will only accept that kind of request. If you keep like this, it means accept anything. And these are some other headers you need. Actually, these are all the predefined headers sent along with the request. As I said, these are all some additional instructions. So yeah. And if you want to mention your own instructions, you can actually write them here. You will write that whatever the thing you want, whatever the key you want to mention, you will write it here, and you will write the value for it. Let's say sometimes you want to accept only JSON format. You want to say like only JSON is allowed, then you will write that here. So these are some additional instructions you will pass along with the request. As I said, get will be for retrieving the information. Now you want to add some data. That is what? Post. I'll show you the post. If you can see, application is still running. See, I'll show you. Here every detail is logged, so you can see clearly. Status code. This is a response. This is a request you sent. This is a get. Forget the request body, because you are just only viewing the information. So these are the headers, the method, that is the request verb we talked about, and the common URI. This is the request you sent, and this is the response you got. If you can see, okay, status code is okay, and some response along with that. Sorry, and some headers and the body. Okay, you all clear with that? Now we will see post request. That is how you will be able to add some data. So post has some body, because whatever the data you want to add to the response, the body, and I'm sending that in JSON format. JSON means key value you have. This is the key and this is the value of it.
Key value pair.
Yeah. You can see here. Oh. Here our resource is, let's say, fruits. So it has ID and color. You want to add one fruit to the you are sending along with the request. You want to add some fruit to the database residing on the server side. So you have to send what are the properties of that fruit, ID and the color. So you need to send this ID and the color of the fruit along with the request to the server. Okay, I'll show you the post. This is a post. So for the post, what is the thing you need to give? You need to give /post for post request. I'll explain the code in detail. Don't worry. I'm showing all the properties of REST. So post and the ID and the color are the properties of the fruit you need to set. So I'm sending the request
to the database.
You got some response. See here in JSON format, we the color and the ID got added, and this is a post request. Again, it is okay. Status code is showing it is okay. Okay. So I think you are all clear with all these elements of REST. And methods, similarly, we'll select if you want to update some data, you will select put here and you will send the whatever the update you want to do to the database. Okay. And these I just talked about. This I think we just showed, right? Request and response. This is the request body I sent, and this is the response I got. Response ports. If you can see, excuse me, if it is 200, it means yeah, it's working fine and good. And if it is 100, it is some informational message. And say bad request, if you are sending some bad request to the user, let's say to the server. Okay, it is still, I think. Okay. See, this is a bad request. 400 showing bad request. Okay. So whenever there is an error in the request, you will get something that is starting with 4. And yeah, if it is starting with 3, then let's say if the database is moved to another port or something, if the server is working on another port, then you need to redirect to that port. At those times, you will get response code starting with 3. Response code starting with 4, we just saw when there is a bad request, when there is an error from the client side. If you are doing some error while requesting the server, then it will, or you say you want to access a site which is not authorized for you. See, you cannot access your college database, right? There is no permission for a student. So whenever you are trying to access the data which is unauthorized, you will get such errors. And error starting with 5, if there is an error with the server, like the server you are requesting from that side, if you have some error, if there is a problem, then the response code will be coming with starting with 5. Okay. Yeah, I think you're good. Advantages of REST, as I told you, it uses less bandwidth and it is scalable. When there is a heavy load also, it will work good. Now we'll move to a Jersey framework. So for implementing REST, we have several framework. We have several frameworks that support implementation of REST actually, that are provided by Java. So Java provides a lot of frameworks for creating REST. Let me type in here some of the frameworks. So Jersey is one thing that is provided by Java for creating REST, and there is other thing called REST Easy and Retrofit. These are all the frameworks actually provided by Java to create REST, and Spark and Drop Wizard. These are all not necessary right now. I'm just saying that these are all provided by Java to implement REST. Right now we are talking about Jersey because it is kind of efficient compared to other frameworks, and it provides more advantages compared to other frameworks, and it is mostly used in many of the companies right now. So Jersey framework. So this is it termed as JAX-ARIS, stands for Java API for RESTful Web Services, because it is provided by Java. Even if you are writing it in Spring, you can use it by adding some dependencies. So let me show you the picture so it will be more clear to you. You can see it here. Actually, the structure is like this. I said presentation layer where you write all those requests to the server. Controller. In controller, you write all those methods using REST. So for that, you will use Jersey framework. Here, there are several other frameworks that supports REST API you can use. So right now we are using Jersey. And the business logic and the persistence layer, you already know, where all the services are implemented and the actual database, the layer that is directly connected to the database, we call it as persistent layer. So we are talking about the controller or the presentation layer, where we can implement it using Jersey framework. Okay. Okay. So for implementing REST, so it provides some annotations. So do all of you know about annotation? What is an annotation? You all can hear me, right?
Yes, ma'am. Annotation.
So what does an annotation do, or what is an annotation? You all heard about at least the word? Okay.
It is used to provide information about a program.
Yeah. So let's say you are writing some program anywhere. I'll show you here itself. So you are writing this program, and let's say I'm adding this here. It is get request. What is this? This is a comment, right? Why do you use comments? You use comments whenever if you want to access your application after some time, you will understand if you write it in comments, you can able to understand the point easily. Okay, this function is used to get request. It is for get request. So similarly, we'll use annotations to let the compiler know this method or this class or that whatever, wherever we keep this. Here I kept this one. So okay, this class is a REST controller. It will know. It will provide an additional information. You can say provide additional information. Okay, so that is why we use annotations. It will make the tasks easier. Okay, so this Jersey framework will provide us some annotations which will make the task easier. So whenever you see that annotation, you will know, okay, this class or this method, the functionality of this method is this thing. So I'll show you all these with examples. Just go through them, each annotation and what is the functionality of that annotations. So path. So path is, just now we talked about at the get post. See here, this is the thing. If you keep path and this one, then the server will know, okay, it is redirecting to that. If you are redirecting to login page, you will specify it with like this path login. Okay, now this is going to login page. And if you want to get, if you are, if you want to post something, then you use post. So actually these are customizable. You can keep anything you wish. So it is to specify the path you are going to redirect to. Then okay. Okay. Let's go back to PPT again. And the next one is path parameters. Path parameters are, let's say you want to access the employee database and you want to access details of the employee with ID this one. So you need to pass the parameter. You all know parameters, right? Whenever you are when you're calling a function, the requirements of that function, you will pass them in the form of arguments or parameters. So you want to access information of an employee with this ID 1001. So you will pass this ID as a parameter. You will how you will mention it inside the method, where we pass the parameters inside the method, right? Let's say this is a function. There is a function called update. You want to update information of that employee. Update info. Here you will mention path param, whatever the ID you want to pass. Right. So this is how you will pass. This is how the annotation use. Path param means whatever the parameter, along with the path you are passing that parameter. Here if you want to get information of that employee, you will pass like this. So this 1001 is the path parameter and get is the path. Okay, you all clear? This you will mention with path param. These are all the annotations provided by Jersey framework. And you all know about get, post, put. Get is to get when you are when you want to retrieve some information, and when you want to implement get request, then you will say get, you will specify get, post, put. These are all annotations actually. Here in place of get mapping, you will keep, sorry, I'll show you the example so it will be more easier for you. Close this, all these things. So this is not the thing. So here, see, path is you will be requesting the server with employees. So this employees is common for everything, for everyone. So whenever you are see like this, here you will say employees. So it is common for every request, and followed this employees. If you want to get the data, you will say get, and if you want to post the data, whatever that is specified here. See, where this is the get request using Jersey framework. It provides get annotation. So whenever you say at get, then that means that is a get request. Okay, here you can see. And if you want it is a post request, you will say @post. Then it okay. So and for options, options is like type of, if you want to get, post, put. If you are not, if in general, if you want to mention, you will say get. Then otherwise you will say options. And form param represents the parameter of the form. If you are okay, let me show you here. First I'll explain whatever that are there here, later we will see that. So produces is used to tell what kind of response the request is giving, in which format. Here we talked about, if I say application XML, then that means it will produce the response in XML format. If I say, let's say, okay, it produces like this, JSON, XML. So it can produce the response in JSON or XML format. Response is like this. See, here we got the response in which format? If you see, it got in JSON format. There are several other formats. So if I gave JSON, XML here, and if I can able to access the response either in JSON format or XML format. And if you only give JSON format, and you will only get in JSON, not in XML. So at produces, you can use to mention the type of response you need. Okay, you can use it for every request, because for either get, post, media type dot application JSON. If you want it in XML, media type dot application XML. See, this is one more advantage in REST actually. So REST support different types of responses, not just a single type. It can support It can support XML, JSON, plain text. Here there are options on Postman if you see. Okay. See, these are all the type of responses you can get using REST. So it is not limited to a one kind. Whenever I'm talking with SOAP, only XML is permitted. But in REST, you can get in various forms, JSON, XML, HTML, text, okay, based on your criteria you specified. So you just have to specify using add produces annotation. And add consumes is, let's say you are posting a request here. Now, in which format I am sending the request here? Oh, it is not running, so it will not give you any response. Now, in which format I am sending the request? In JSON format, right? So I can send in these many forms. Request also. I can request either in plain text or in HTML, JavaScript, XML. Right now, I am requesting in JSON format. So that is why I kept add consumes application JSON. So that means in whatever the format I am requesting, consumes means that method or that request will consume the request body in that media type. If you keep if you want to request in XML format, you just have to mention comma media type dot application XML. So add consumes is used for that purpose. Okay. Add produces, add consumes. Add consumes is not there for get. Why? For get there is no request body, right? For get there is no request body. You will just get the information from the server. But post, you will be requesting something for post and put. You will be providing some request body along with the request. So that is why there is a consumes and produces. Consumes for post and put. And path parameter, see, here you will say inside the method, this is the update employee method. In update employee method, it is taking ID as the parameter. You will be passing along with the path. Along with the path means you will be selecting post put here, and you will be passing the ID along with this path. That is mapped to which one? Employee ID. So here this means public response, update employee is the name of the function. ID is which you are passing along with the path, which is mapped to employee ID. Because inside the table or inside the resource, you will be terming that as employee ID. So it is mapped to this ID, whatever you are passing. And you will be updating this particular employee object equal to that ID. If you see, we will see the method implementation here. See. So you are passing that ID and that employee object. Now you are filtering employee ID equal to e.getID. So inside all of that employees, you are filtering the employee object with equal to that employee ID. And then what you are doing, you are updating it. You are setting a name and setting an email for that employee. You are updating it. Okay. That is written in implementation, service implementation. This is the business logic, as I said, where the actual logic is written. That is second layer, business logic layer. If you can see here in this layer, the green color part is the service implementation layer. So as I said, everything is a program, everything is just a class. So in this class, you will write the implementations, and here using Jersey framework, the REST API, how we implemented REST API here. If you can see employee resource, this is where we implemented REST API using Jersey framework. Jersey framework means we are using the annotations provided by the Jersey. We are and also along with adding some dependencies, I'll show you. So yeah, you all know what is a dependency? Dependency.
Yes, ma'am.
What is a dependency?
It is not the implicit object into Win class.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, fine. So you can say like prerequisites required for using. If you are using Jersey framework, you need to add that in your. You need to add that framework into your project, right? In this project, I am using the Jersey framework. So to include that framework in my project, I need to add. You can say I need to add some properties of that Jersey framework inside that pom.xml. I'll show you. So see, these are the dependencies. Actually, you don't need to write them. These are already available on the in Maven Marketplace or somewhere. If you search for Jersey dependencies, you will get them. You just need to add that to your pom.xml. Whatever the framework you are using, you need to add the dependencies of that framework into your pom.xml before using that. Or else these annotations doesn't work. If they need to work, you need to add the dependencies. So you need to add these dependencies. You can see Jersey client, Jersey server, Jersey container servlet, Jersey media, JSON, Jackson, Jersey H2. So these are all the dependencies here. These are the main dependencies you need to add to your form.xml before implementing all those annotations, all those methods. Okay. And the versions, you can actually, while selecting the version here, see, I just kept the jersey.version because it will make that compatible. Like if you are using Tomcat web server, you need to add the dependency that version should be compatible to the server, even if you want to keep the latest version of this dependency. Sometimes what happens is compatibility won't be there. The recent version of this may be not compatible with the Tomcat server. So you need to see the compatible version and you need to update in form.xml before implementing that. And the methods are same. For the methods are same: get, put, post, delete. These are the methods of REST API. And if you want to implement that methods of REST using Jersey framework, you have to use these annotations, which are mandatory. For any request, what are mandatory? The path you need to specify. I mean, the common URI. You need to specify the common URI, and you have to say what kind of method is that. Is that a get method or a post method or a put method? What kind of method is this? You need to tell that using get annotation. We just see here the annotations: get annotation, post annotation. You need to mention what kind of method it is using get annotation. And path parameter. If you are passing some, if you want to passing some parameter along with the path, like this is the path, and let's say you are passing some ID. I should not say ID, some number, or let's say you want to pass it through color. You are passing some parameter along with the path. So you will specify that using path param annotation. Produces is what kind of response you are getting. That may be a JSON response or XML response. As per your needs, you need to mention. If you want a JSON response, you will say here if you see, you will say add produces media type dot application JSON. Okay. So you need to implement that. See, you can see the example method on my screen. By seeing this, you can say, okay, it is a get method. It is taking the ID as a parameter or an argument. It is required to see. You are retrieving the information of an employee. So in this employee repository, you are getting the details of that employee by passing the ID. Okay. Where is the logic implemented? The logic will be implemented in the business logic layer. That is, in the service class, you will write the you will write the implementation of this method, where you will check if that ID is there in the database, and if it is there, you will provide the details of that employee as a response. If it is not there, you will say some message, you will print some message, let's say ID is not found in the database. Okay, like that. So this is an example of get request using Jersey framework. And post, for post we'll have consumes along with the produces, because for post because it has a request body, we'll have consumes annotation along with the produces annotation. Also, we'll have version at the top in pom.xml. I'll show you. Here, if you can see model version. Okay. So yeah, it will be there at the top of pom.xml. Whatever the version we are using, you can see. I mean, and there's along with it, there are some other Jersey version you can see in the properties tag. It's 2.38. Okay. Just give me a second. Okay. Yeah. So you can see the version of the Jersey framework we are using. There are, I mean, latest version, we have latest version, it is 4 point something. It is 2.38. Okay. The latest stable release of Jersey. I mean, there are other versions too, but this is the stable, like it is fully developed version is 2.38. Okay, that is what we are using here. Okay. Coming back to our path. So form param, it will actually gives the name of the form parameter whose value you will be used to initialize the value. Here, let's say I'll show you. Okay. See, here you can say it is a post method and it is taking the request in JSON or XML format. See, you need to know is if it is taking in JSON format, it will also give you the response in JSON only, not in XML. And if it is taking in XML, it will give you an XML only. Okay, you need to see that. I mean, you need to provide that. And what it is doing, you are passing some employee along with it. So it will add that employee to the repository. What are the details? It is taking the ID, first name, last name, and age. Sorry. And it will be, so these are all the details you will be sending in the request. You all know how the request is there, right? In post, here I am just passing there. So instead of that, here you will say employee ID. That may be something. If it is a string, then you will pass something, then like that. So you will pass all these details, employee, first name, like that. Like that, all the details that are there in the table, if say all the attributes of the table, you will pass as a request. Okay. And what is the response you will be getting? You will be getting something like, yeah, the employee is added to the database, or let's say new employee created. You will get some request as whatever you wrote. If you want 200 okay means, yeah, it got added. The request is successfully executed. Okay. Okay. So next one is put. And you can see the example here, why we use put and the difference between put and post. Can anyone say? Everybody there or left? Anyone say the difference between put and post? No one knows. You can type in the chat window either.
Post method is used to get the information from the server.
Post.
Post method, and otherwise put method is used to insert the data using the browser.
So actually, the main difference is post is to add new data to the database, or you can say, or the server, to add, if you want to add new employee. Put is no put is to update that, to update the existing data. Let's say you are adding an employee ABC, named employee ABC, you are adding. So you will add all the details of that employee. A new employee is registering in your organization. You will add all the details of that employee to the database. While put is like employee is already there in your organization. Let's say you are changing, yeah, you are changing the details, or let's say you are updating the mobile number, or you are updating the email of that particular existing user, then you will say that as put. Okay. So you can see put also we are sending the request body, like whatever the part you want to update. So the annotations you're already. And delete, why do we use delete? The name itself says, if you want to delete something from the database, then you will, let's say you want to delete details of a particular employee, you will pass the ID only because only with the help of ID you can able to identify that employee, right? So yeah. And coming to the dependencies, I'll show you the working program of Jax Aris. Give me a second. Give me a second. I'll show you the working example of your application using Jax Aris. So, okay, on the screen you can see the methods I just showed you. And add path. Why do we use add path? To which is common, that uniform resource identifier, which is common to every request. And the get request, post request, we will see how they are. So employees is common for every request. Before requesting, you will keep employees before. Okay. Okay. We'll run this and see how it works. We need to start the server first, Tomcat server, and then we will see how requested response happens. See, as I said, employees is common for every request. We are seeing all the details. It is working. It is running on port number 8080. Okay. See, just now only this is the only data that is there in database. Only one employee is there. Only one employee is there. That is why it is showing the details of only one employee. So let's say we will add. How can we add a new record to the database using post method, right? For post, if you want to access a employee of a particular employee using path param, you will be passing the ID to the ID. You will insert ID into the request. So after employee, you will keep ID in the path. We will see that too. You want to retrieve the employee with information whose ID is 1. Let's say that is only there in database. So we'll be checking the details of employee whose ID is 1. So you will get that. So here you are passing 1 as a path parameter to the function. Okay. And if you want to add a new record, how it happens, we will see. At post, at produces, it will produce the information in JSON, and at consumes, we will be adding the information in JSON format. We'll be requesting more. So the body, and you need to select raw, JSON, yeah, ID, name. Okay. Yeah. And then we'll be sending the request. So right now what happened? 200. Okay. That means it got added. You can actually print something or something else. So if it is saying, if it is showing status okay, then that means the request got successfully executed. Now we will check if it is added to the database or not by sending the get request again. Initially, there is only one employee. Now I added a record and I'll be checking if, yeah, see, after adding a new record and I'm implementing the get method, if you can see 2 employees are there. That means the record I added just now was added to the database. Okay. I think you all clear with this. Now, yeah, if you want to check employee 2, you need to pass the ID of employee 2. See, okay. So this employee 2 data is successfully added using post. So for post, what are the annotations we used? Add post, add path param, add produces, and add consumes. Okay. So, and in web.xml. So can you show the the XML file? Any questions in
Can
this
you-
project? You can.
Can you show put
Sorry?
method is working or not? Put method.
Yeah. Before that, actually, yeah, it will be the same. Actually, I want you to show. Yeah, it is a put method. The web.xml where you need to give me a second. Okay. See, if you can see here, you need to write this web.xml, providing all the details. You can see on the line 24, if you see URL pattern. So URL pattern is any request that is starting with REST, and after I kept star. Star means so the request after that anything is allowed. So after that, if you say employee or something, anything else, So if there is a REST before that URL, then that request is allowed. So yeah, inside REST service, and whatever the request that is starting with REST, it will be mapped by the servlet container. You can see in line 10, what is the class we are using? Servlet container. So all the requests will be mapped by the servlet container to the particular service. Okay, let's say you want to post some data, you want to create a new record, then that request will be mapped by the servlet container to that particular method. Where all these methods are implemented, all these methods are implemented in business logic, that is implementation class, service implementation class. So all these requests you will be sending with REST before the URL will be mapped by the servlet container to the particular class. So you need to write this servlet class, and then all of these are in which package. If you can see the project structure inside the source folder, all are there in com.example package. Is that right? Everything is in structure. So you can see the project structure too. When you keep everything in a same package, see, it looks structured, and it should be there in a same package. Okay, so yeah, everything is there in com.example package. That you need to mention this web.xml. And one more thing is config. So this config class, app config. So can you open this config class, com.exam? Yeah. So the main task of this config class is you will be providing two things. One is you will be saying that all these classes are there in which package, you will be showing that. And one more thing is it will bind the resource. Let's say your resource or your database is employee repository, or your resource is fruits, whatever. So it will bind that. It will say these two. Along with that, inject. I think if you heard about AutoWire, it will be something similar to that. So inject will actually add that service class to existing, that is linking that service class to the presentation layer using inject. Okay, using inject annotation, you will be able to access all the methods of that service class inside this controller. Controller means the presentation layer where you are implementing the REST here. You are implementing the REST inside this employee resource class, right? So whenever a request came, you will be able to you have to redirect it to particular function inside the service class. So how can you access the methods of the service class? By injecting that service class inside your controller or inside your presentation layer. You will be adding that using inject annotation. Okay, so inject annotation is used for that purpose. And as I said, app config will tell you two things. One is the package name where all the classes are residing, and the other one is it will tell you the resource, like the database, the repository. It will bind the it will tell from where our data is coming, which repository or which resource. Here we are using employee, so we are using employee repository. So these two things are mentioned in app config, that is configuring your application. Okay, and this is the here in employee binder, you are overriding the configure class, and you are binding this implementation class to the service class. Actually, in service, employee service and employee service implementation are same, but in employee service, we'll have the interfaces where we are going to implement those interfaces or services in employee service implementation class. So we are going to bind those two in this employee binder. I think you all know about difference between interface and class, right? So we will write interface in service class to provide abstraction actually. So we will implement those methods which we wrote in employee service class in employee service implementation. That is why the name itself says employee service implementation. All the services we mentioned in employee service will be implemented in employee service implementation class. You can ask why we need two classes. We can directly implement it. Actually, to provide abstraction, a little bit abstraction, we will write employee service class with interfaces, and we'll implement them in employee service implementation class. So to bind them together, we will write a my employee binder in Jersey framework. Okay. Some of them, some of the tasks we performed here are automated in Spring framework. That is okay. So, but here we need to mention whatever we are doing. Let's say your resource you need to mention, your packages you need to mention, and the dependency versions you need to mention. So in web.xml, if you see, we all mentioned manually. We configured it manually. Okay, we configured everything, the path, the servlet container, and the package name. So everything we need to configure manually in Jersey framework. Okay. Any doubts till now in this project? You need to actually observe the flow, how it happens, and how this Jersey framework is helping. What kind of functional methods or annotations it is providing to implement REST. Okay. Actually, this Jersey framework is provided by Java itself. Okay. If you have any doubts, you can ask. I think you can see my screen. Excuse me. Just give me a second.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
How can I get your code for practice?
Yeah, we will provide you at the end. You can contact the admin team. They'll provide you all the materials, the code or the PPT, everything. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And you need to see this actually content negotiation. What is content negotiation? Okay. So let's say in method I mentioned media dot application JSON, application XML, like that, right? So let's say if you keep JSON, then you will be expecting JSON response. If you keep XML, you will only get XML response. I already mentioned it, right? Like if you provided at produces, if you gave JSON, you won't get XML. So whatever you mentioned, you can negotiate. Like if I want only JSON formatted response, I want only XML formatted, like that you can negotiate in this Jersey framework. In the annotations, at produces, at consumes.
Hello, ma'am.
So,
Hello, ma'am.
sorry. Yeah.
I want both format. So it's possible or not at a one time?
Yeah. Yeah, possible. You can keep I also showed that. Let me show you again. You can keep comma separated values. Just give me a second. See, like this, you can keep comma separated values. Okay.
Okay.
you can mention that too. And yeah, it helps to understand the type of data received by the system and expect. So if you keep like that, you can expect, okay, I gave JSON as a expected response. So you can say, yeah, I will only get JSON response like that. Okay. And accept header, I showed you if I kept star, anything is accepted, or I'll show you in Postman. Here I kept accept anything. If I keep, I'll write it here. Just give me a second. Accept. And you can say application. You can see the suggestions here. Let me scroll up. So these are the suggestions. If I keep application/JSON, only JSON formatted requests are accepted. Okay. That is what explained in the PPT. If you can go through the points. Anything else till now? Or you want me to move to the next section? If you have any doubts, you can put in the chat window or unmute yourself and ask. Okay, I'll move to the next. See, content negotiation is like this. If you observe the diagram, see, it is sending request in which format? Application.json. That means here I kept the header as accept application.json. So only JSON formatted response are accepted. Written response 200 okay, content type application.json. Okay, these are the resources, these are the type of responses or requests you can expect from the server. You can select which kind of response you need. That is what we call it as content negotiation. Okay. And we'll move to filters. Filter is nothing but it is one of the functionality or class, you can say, provided by Jax Harris, where you can implement this class and you can provide all these you can get all these functionalities: authentication, logging. You all know what is auditing, logging? Can anyone say auditing, logging? Have you heard these terms before? Anyone? Yeah, someone sending something. What is Jax Harris? Jersey framework, in short, we'll call it as Jax Harris. Don't get confused, sorry. I told you here, okay. Jersey, Jax Harris, both are same. It is provided by Java. It is an API which is provided by Java. That is why you will call it as Jax Harris. I think I showed you here. Just give me a second. Here, see. I showed you the slide, right? I think maybe you missed this one. Go through this slide. Again, your confusion. So it is an API. What is an API again? It is nothing but an interface or a method, you can say, that allows us to communicate with two programs or whatever, two systems. So it is provided by Java. This framework is actually provided by Java for implementing REST. You call it Jax Harris. So the dependencies also I showed you: JavaX, Jersey container, servlet, Jersey server. I showed you in pom.xml2. I think I showed you. See. Okay. 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 Fine. Yeah, like that. If you got any doubts, ask me. Okay. Where are we? We are talking about filters, right? Okay. I asked you something. Logging. What is logging? What is auditing? Have you heard these terms before? Anyone? Logging, logs. I think you all know about logs. What is a log? You will keep record of everything you do, right? Auditing, logging. These functionalities are also provided using these filters. So this you will implement this filters class, not just the filters class. There is a particular class. See, to add filters, you need to implement this container request filter class. Like this, you will implement. I think I didn't mention. But let's say if you are writing this class, you will say you will write implements that particular class, whatever the class you want to. You want to use for logging, auditing, like that. Okay. So you'll implement that functionality. You will include that in your class. And again, there is another annotation which is provided by this JAX-RS or Jersey framework is add provider annotation. So whenever you keep add provider before a class, where you will keep add provider, you will keep it. Yeah, in the path you will keep add provider. So you need to keep that at class level to tell that about the filter class you are using. Okay, so all clear? Okay. Then so you will create a single instance of filter class in every application. Like if you are if there is one project, for entire project you will be using one instance of filter to create all the logging, auditing, whatever you want. See, all the logging means whenever you run the project, whatever the requests, whatever the responses you are getting, all the type of information. I think I showed you. I will show you again that how the logging happens. First, I'll close all of them. We'll run this and okay, this is a console. Oh, okay, wait. I think I need to restart it. Right. See, it is still running. Okay, it is running. That is why. Okay, it is already. This is the previous case here. Previously, we sent some request and we got some responses, right? See, this is all the logs. If you can see, this is the log. Whatever the request we are sending, this is the request URI and request method. These are the headers that were sent along with the request and the port, everything. Forget there is no request body. So this is the request you sent, and what is the response you got? This is the response you got. So this is the logging. You will get this logging when you implement that filter class and the classes, and you will use that annotations. You will get these logs, and these log files, if you can see, they were saved on the date and the year. You can see like that. Okay. So you will get all these log files generated. Wait. Okay. So yeah. So that is what you call logging. I think every request and response you got will be logged on the console, or if you want it in a separate file, that is also, you can do that thing also. So on the client side, you will use these classes. On the server side, you will use these classes to implement the, to get the functionalities of this JAX-RS filters, client request filter and client response filter. Okay. And that, and okay, I explained about Jersey framework is for REST, is for implementing REST, and I also mentioned some names along with it. Actually, these are all the frameworks provided by Java for implementing REST. There is something that is provided by Spring Boot also for implementing REST. Using Spring Boot framework also, we can implement REST. These are actually provided by Java. Using Spring Boot, we can implement REST. Now again, the annotations we used here, we used a path annotation, we use path param annotation in Jersey framework. Coming to Spring Boot, we use different annotations. I can show you. Everything is same. The annotations and some dependencies will change based on the framework. Here you are using Spring Boot framework. So some dependencies you need to add and annotations will change. That's it. And the advantages is you wrote web.xml in Jersey framework, right? Like manually configuring everything, the path, the dependencies, the versions. You need to manually write everything. In Spring, what happens is you don't need to do all those stuff. Everything is automatically dependency management, you call that. Everything is managed automatically. In Spring, it will provide dependency manage. That is, if you are using frameworks of different versions, it will automatically update the version which is compatible with the server. Okay. But in JAX-RS, what we did, we need to write the versions which are compatible, like by us. Manually, you need to do that. But in Spring, it will do automatically. Okay. So I'll show you the annotations. Yeah. So if you can compare both the things, open the controller. Okay. Both do the same thing, but the only change is the annotation. Here you use get mapping annotation. Here what you are using get annotation. In Jersey framework, you are using get annotation. In Spring framework, you will be using get mapping annotation. For get request. For post request, you will be using post mapping, put mapping. Just see the code and let me know if you have any doubts. Just go through the code once. I mean, not the complete code, just see the annotations. And here how we kept the inject to add the service to our class, like that. That is the link, you can say. Actually, here if you see, let me show. As I said, there are 3 layers: presentation layer, This is presentation layer, let's say, and this is a service layer or business logic. And here you will have persistent layer, which is directly connected to database. Okay. Now you need to establish the connection between these then. There are methods inside the service class which you need to call in the presentation layer. Why? Let's say you are sending a request for login. So you want to log in and you are sending some request along with credentials. So they will hit this layer first. You will pass the details of the user, that may be username and password. So you need to authenticate them, right? Whether they are in the database or not. So you will call the method. There is a login function inside this service implementation, which will authenticate whether they are in the database or not. So you will call this method inside the service class in here by passing the details of this. So whenever I say I log in, I'll pass ABC and ABC1 are the username and password. So this will take them and call this method here, call this method which is there in the service class and pass these values. Okay. So you need to auto-wire this class in here because you are using the methods of that class. So both auto-wire and inject will do the same thing. And you are auto-wiring that, here you are injecting it. Okay. Go through the code once. Excuse me. Okay. So for get mapping, you'll use, for get request, you'll use get, put, and delete. You'll use delete mapping. Okay. And the same, see, wait, here I'll show you. Allow, path param, you will be in here. In Jersey framework, you will be passing path parameters, right? So let's say you are passing some ID along with the path, you will say path param. But in Spring framework, you will say act request body. So whatever you are passing, sorry. In request body, if you are passing employee object, so you will see, you will define it using request body annotation. If I'm passing fruits, I'm passing fruits object. So you will mention that as at request body. Okay. And yeah, media type application.json. So headers dot set accept. So you will only accept, you can actually set it here, or here also you can set headers dot set accept. You will only accept the JSON formatted requests. That is what it is saying. Okay. Yeah. Request body content type and request mapping. Request mapping is get mapping, post mapping. I showed you right here. Post mapping, get mapping. That is the request mapping annotation is used for that purpose. And REST controller, if you say, if you, in any class, if you keep at class level, if you keep at REST controller annotation, then that means it is implementing the REST API using Spring framework. Here I kept, if you see here, see REST controller @ okay. And request parameters are the parameters you are going to pass along with the request. Actually, only the names differ. The functionality of these annotations are same in both Jersey framework and Spring Boot. Okay. And the response entity. In the response entity, you will get all the response code, headers, and the status code and the body. That is the response. We call it as response entity. You can see that in the console. Where is our console? Previous console, if you can see. Okay. So previously I showed you in the console the logging all the request and response code. This is the response code, response format, and the response body. And these are the headers for request, and there will be headers for response too. So these are the headers for response. These are also predefined. You don't need to define externally. Okay. Yeah. So for this time, until this time, this is milliseconds. So your connection will be like if you are idle, and until this time the connection will stay alive. Okay. So I think, yeah. After this, you will be having a new workshop, which is for UI technologies, that is HTML, JavaScript, which will be starting from 12:30 p.m. And the link to that will be posted shortly in the chat window. You can check for that, like at 11:30 something. Link will be posted to free workshop of UI technologies. Okay, interested people can join, and if there are any friends of you who might be interested in UI technologies, you can tell them to join too, which will be starting from 12:30, and it is a 2-hour session. Link will be posted in the chat window. You can save that. Okay, and yeah, coming back, interceptors in Spring Boot. So so these interceptor, okay, yeah, you can see the posters and details of that workshop posted in chat window. Okay. You can see, and interested people can join, and if there are any friends or people you might know that they are interested in the workshop, you can send them the invitation link. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So coming back, so this, what did this interceptor will do is, I will show. So whenever I say request, if it's request is treated by the controller, whenever this request comes, and it will hit the controller. Okay. So what this interceptor will do is, before hitting this controller, it will intercept the client request and that are coming back from the server also. Let's say some response is coming from the controller itself. So it will be there in the middle, interceptor. It will intercept both request and response and do some processing before actually going to handle it to the controller. So do some processing in the sense, you can say, you can say the request all the, yeah, you can say like if the request, there are some details inside the request and which are not in the format expected by the controller. How I can say, there are some methods which will help us handle the request. And see, add component, where we will use add component. Add component is used at the class level. It is similar to controller. Here you will keep actually, in place of REST controller, you will keep add component. You can either keep controller. For service class, you will keep add service. So yeah, so to handle the request before giving it to the controller, we have some methods. This is nothing but a class. You need to implement that interceptor. I'll show you. I think I have a code of that. Just give me a second. I'll show you it. Okay. The same here, actually, the same thing we are doing, get mapping, post mapping, you can see all stuff. This is another controller. This is also using the fruit service. Here, if you can see, this is the service, and yeah. So this is the class where we are implementing this client HTTP request interceptor. This is a predefined interface provided by the Spring, which we can implement. And the methods, one method I overrided is intercept. Here we can also have a pre-handle, post-handle, all those methods we'll have. Okay. So basically anything I told you, like filters, similarly filters class is also same. You will implement the filters class here. So everything is an interface that is you are going to implement in your program, or that may be a package you need to import into your class to use the functionality, or that may be a framework you will add dependency to your application. So these are the methods you have to override into your application. Similarly, like how I overrided the intercept method. So it will intercept not only the request, both request and response. It will intercept. Here I log all the details of the request and response. It is logging request, and here it is logging response. Okay, and then okay, you can create custom interceptors too. That is how you will register using interceptor registry. You just need to familiarize with the terms. I'm not going into the deep concepts. To familiarize with these terms, I am letting you know all this stuff. Okay, and along with interceptors, we have, as I told you, we have filters in Jersey, right? Similarly, we have filters in Spring Boot too. Both are same. Just like if you have list in Python and then array in Java, both are same, right? Just like that. Here you need to implement this interface. So you will write implement filter, the class followed by implements. You will write the filter here, filter method, filter class. It is okay. I thought it will show you some solutions. So you need to import this package and you need to implement that filter class. Use add component at class level. So at class level means here whenever you are implementing those classes, you need to use add component annotation. Generally we use add controller or at rest controller in general if you want to use, but add component will serve all the business layer or the presentation layer. It will be useful for all the layers. If you want to specify a single particular layer, then you will say add controller, add service, add repository. You will use those annotations. Okay, so this is also the same. It will be useful to log both request and response. Either you are sending it to maybe external server or internal server, both. It will log everything. Filters are provided by both Spring Boot and in Jersey framework too. JAX-RS will also providing filters. You need to implement a class. What class you need to implement? See, container request filter and container response filter you need to implement. And in Spring Boot, you need to import this package and you need to implement filter class. Okay. And the last one is REST template. Okay. It is actually used to consume the services, whatever services you just wrote in the service class using auto-wired annotation. I'll show you. We did this here in this application. So yeah. So yeah, you created a bean for the REST template and then you auto wire. So when you will use auto wire, when you want to use the methods of that REST template. See, what are the methods provided by the REST template class? Get for entity, post for entity, for post method. For get method, it will give get for entity. For post method, it will give post for entity. Entity, what is entity again? Can anyone say entity? Entity. When you will say entity is nothing but you can say that the table or the particular resource. Here fruit object is the entity. Here we are requesting that service, right? We are requesting fruit service in different methods, either get, post, put. So that is the entity here. So you can use the REST template class methods, dot exchange. Okay, there are several methods you can use by REST template. Okay, so yeah, since this is a workshop, I didn't covered everything, or I didn't and explain the topic in detail. I just want to let you familiarize with all the topics? Yeah, I guess you can. You need to contact with the admin team. Yeah, I think they'll send you through the mail. They'll send the content to the mail. Okay. So yeah, to let you know how we teach or how we organize, how the organization, to let you familiarize with all those stuff, we organize this free workshop session. Actually, there is a course you can register for the complete end-to-end and all three. We'll cover everything 360 degrees. We'll cover everything that is related to REST API, Spring Boot, complete. We have courses for everything. You just contact the admin team. You choose the course you want to register and register for it, and you will get end-to-end hands-on experience and knowledge by the completion of the course. Actually, there is a course for REST API. You can register. You can contact the admin team. Okay, and they'll provide you the details and when it is starting, how to register and everything. So yeah, this free workshop is to let you know that we are also having some courses which you may be interested, and there is a free UI session following this, which will start by 12:30. You can join that, and yeah. So with all the practical examples and hands-on experience, if you want, you can register the course. Okay. Since it's a workshop, I didn't cover everything. I just like explained you the terms and just showed you the code. If you register in that course, you will get hands-on experience of full end-to-end project. Okay. Yeah. Anything else regarding any doubts? You can contact the admin team. Okay. Course totally free or the paid course. I think there are paid courses too. You can contact the admin team. You will get all the details of the courses and you can register. Okay. And also don't forget to share your feedback with the team. So we can, yeah. So, and interested people, try this UI session too. I think you will be interested in that. All the courses, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, everything is covered in that UI session. All the front end part, you can join and experience that too. Okay. Anything else? I'll wait for a few more minutes. You can ask or you can leave. Thank you for everyone for attending today's workshop, and thank you for joining this Encode IT. Yeah, actually, you can take a full-time course, and we'll help you reach that point where you can able to do all the stuff on your own. Yeah, thank you so much for today's session. If you have doubts, you can ask me or you can leave. Yeah, thank you. I think no more doubts. You can leave. Thank you for the session. Thank you very much.